The distress signal wasn't meant for him. Jonas Hale knew that the moment it flickered across his ship's battered console, fragmented, encrypted, and clearly not human in origin. He was just a salvage pilot drifting along the outer edges of the Perseus Drift, a graveyard of broken ships and forgotten wars. Signals like that usually meant trouble. And trouble, Jonas had learned, rarely paid well. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing the stubble along his jaw as the signal repeated itself, a soft, rhythmic pulse that almost sounded desperate. "Not my problem," he muttered. The autopilot hummed quietly, awaiting instruction. The coordinates blinked faintly on the screen, less than 2 hours away. Jonas exhaled sharply. Damn it. He tapped the console. Course correction. The wreckage came into view like a ghost in the void, a shattered alien vessel, its hull twisted and scorched. It was unlike anything Jonas had seen before. Sleek curves broken into jagged fragments, faint bioluminescent veins flickering weakly across its surface. "Not human," he whispered. He docked cautiously, magnetic clamps securing his small salvage ship to what remained of the alien craft. His boots echoed softly as he stepped inside, weapon drawn. The air inside was thin but breathable. The interior glowed faintly, organic panels pulsing like a dying heartbeat. "Hello," he called out, knowing full well he wouldn't understand the reply. Silence. Then movement. Jonas froze. A small figure darted from behind a collapsed panel. Not a threat. A child. She was unlike anything he'd imagined. Barely the size of a human 6-year-old, her skin shimmered faintly with shifting colors, soft blues and purples that rippled like water. Her eyes were large, luminous, reflecting fear and exhaustion. She stumbled toward him, then stopped, trembling. Jonas slowly lowered his weapon. Hey, it's okay," he said softly, raising his hands. The child tilted her head, studying him. Then she made a sound, a fragile, broken chirp, and collapsed. Jonas caught her just before she hit the floor. She was lighter than he expected. Fragile. Burning with fever. "Great," he muttered. "Just great." He scanned the wreckage one last time. No other life signs. Whoever had been here was gone. He carried her back to his ship. The next few hours were a blur of improvisation. Jonas wasn't a medic, but years in deep space had taught him enough to keep someone alive. He adjusted the ship's atmosphere, ran diagnostics, and tried to interpret her biology using the limited xenomedical database he had. "She's dehydrated, malnourished, and something's wrong with her respiration," he muttered. The child lay on the med bunk, her glowing skin dimming. Jonas hesitated. "All right, kid, don't die on me." He worked through the night. She woke 3 days later. Jonas was half asleep in the pilot's chair when he heard a soft sound behind him. He turned. The child was sitting up, staring at him. Her eyes were brighter now. Curious. Alive. "Well," Jonas said, rubbing his eyes. "That's a good sign." She tilted her head again. Then, slowly she smiled. Communication wasn't easy. The translator struggled, but over time, fragments of meaning began to form. Her name, as close as Jonas could understand it, was Lyra. Her species, something like the Valari. And her home, gone, the translator crackled. Jonas felt a knot tighten in his chest. "What do you mean, gone?" Lyra's expression darkened. Her colors shifted into muted grays. "Attack. Fire. Sky breaks." Jonas exhaled slowly. "Yeah, I've seen that before." War. Days turned into weeks. Jonas had planned to drop her at the nearest trade station, let someone else deal with it. But every time he plotted a course, he stopped. Lyra had taken to following him everywhere. She mimicked his movements, tried to learn his words, even laughed, an odd, chiming sound, what he told bad jokes. For the first time in years, Jonas didn't feel alone. "All right," he said one evening, staring at the stars. "We'll figure something out." Lyra sat beside him, her small hand resting on his arm. The first sign of trouble came as a shadow. A fleet. Jonas spotted them on long-range sensors, dozens of ships dropping out of warp, their signatures unfamiliar and heavily armed. "Not good," he muttered. Lyra stiffened beside him. Her colors shifted rapidly. Fear, recognition. "Enemy," she said, the translator barely keeping up. Jonas's jaw tightened. "They followed you?" She shook her head. "No, they hunt." The fleet began scanning the sector. Jonas powered down non-essential systems, trying to stay hidden. "Stay quiet," he whispered. But it was already too late. A targeting lock flashed across his console. The first shot missed. The second didn't. Jonas's ship shuddered violently as energy tore across its shields. "Hang on," he shouted. He pushed the engines to their limit, weaving through debris and asteroid clusters. The enemy ships were faster, more advanced. They weren't trying to disable him. They were trying to erase him. "Why?" Jonas demanded, gripping the controls. "Why are they after you?" Lyra's voice trembled. Important." Jonas blinked. "That's not helpful, kid." She looked at him, eyes glowing brighter than ever. "Mother Queen." Jonas froze. "You're kidding." She shook her head. Jonas let out a hollow laugh. "Of course you are. Of course I picked up a royal alien kid." Another blast rocked the ship. "All right, Your Highness," he muttered. "Let's try not to die." The chase lasted hours. Jonas used every trick he knew, gravity slingshots, sensor decoys, blind jumps. But the fleet stayed on him. Relentless. Patient. Inevitable. "We can't outrun them forever," he said. Lyra was silent. Then, softly, "Signal." Jonas glanced at her. "What's signal?" She pointed to the console. "Call Mother." Jonas hesitated. "Kid, if your mom's a queen, and these guys wiped out your people—" "Not wiped," Lyra interrupted. "Hidden." Jonas frowned. "Hidden." She nodded. "Waiting." Another blast tore through the hull. Warning alarm screamed. "All right," Jonas snapped. "We're out of options." He rerouted power to the transmitter. "Tell me what to do." Lyra placed her small hand on the console. Her skin began to glow, bright, pulsing light spreading across the controls. The ship's systems flickered, then stabilized. A signal, ancient, powerful, burst into the void. Everything went silent. Even the enemy fleet seemed to pause. Jonas stared at the screen. Did it work? Lyra didn't answer. She was staring out the viewport. Look. Space changed. At first, Jonas thought his sensors were malfunctioning. Then he saw it. Shapes emerging from nothing. Massive. Endless. An entire fleet, far larger than the one chasing them, decloaked in perfect formation. Ships unlike anything he'd ever seen. Elegant. Terrifying. Alive. The enemy fleet reacted instantly. They opened fire. It didn't matter. The newcomers moved like predators. Precise. Efficient. Within minutes, the hunters became the hunted. Jonas watched in stunned silence. Remind me never to mess with your people. Lyra smiled faintly. A single ship approached, larger than the rest. Commanding. Jonas's console lit up with an incoming transmission. Here we go, he muttered. He accepted. The being that appeared on screen was breathtaking. Tall, radiant, her form shifting with controlled energy. Her eyes burned with intelligence and power. The Queen. Lyra's mother. She looked at Jonas. Then at Lyra. And something changed. Emotion. Relief. Lyra stepped forward. Mother. The Queen's voice echoed, layered and melodic. My child. For a moment, the war outside didn't exist. Then the Queen's gaze returned to Jonas. Sharp. Assessing. You are human. Jonas nodded slowly. Last I checked, you saved her.
Yeah. A pause.
You defied those who hunted her. Jonas shrugged. I don't like bullies. The Queen studied him. Then she stood, fully
Proud.
and spoke words that would echo far beyond that moment. When the Queen hears the name of the one who saved her child, she stands. Jonas blinked.
Ah.
She continued, and she declares his arrival. The fleet outside shifted formation, ships aligning, weapons lowering, an entire armada acknowledging him. Jonas let out a breath. Well, that's new. The Queen's voice softened. You will not be forgotten, Jonas Hale. He rubbed the back of his neck. Wasn't really doing it for recognition. I know, she said. That is why it matters. Lyra looked at him. Come. Jonas hesitated. The stars stretched endlessly before him. For years, he had drifted without purpose. Now, he had a choice. He smiled. Yeah, kid. I think I will. Ending Jonas Hale never returned to the life he once knew. The Perseus drift became a distant memory, replaced by the living cities and radiant worlds of the Volari. Among them, he was no longer just a scavenger or a drifter. He was something more. A symbol. A human who stood against an army for a child who wasn't his own. The galaxy took notice. Stories spread of the fragile species from a harsh world, humans who could be reckless, stubborn, and fiercely loyal, and of one man who proved that even in the vast, uncaring void, compassion could reshape destiny. Years later, when new conflicts stirred and old enemies whispered of revenge, the Volari did not stand alone. Because where their fleets gathered, human ships began to arrive. One by one, then hundreds, then thousands. And at the head of them all stood a single vessel, older, patched, unmistakable. Jonas Hale's ship. No longer running, no longer hiding. And when the Queen heard his name once more, she stood again, not in debt, but in alliance. Because the day a human saved an alien child was the day the galaxy learned humanity does not abandon those it chooses to protect.